So welcome. Today we're going to be talking about video and why learners want video in e-learning. My name is Ashling and I am going to be moderating today's conversation. If you've tuned in before, I may be a familiar face, but I am a customer value manager here at Easygenerator. And I am joined by two lovely experts, let's say, in the field. And I'll let them introduce themselves and I won't do any disservice. So, Bobby, perhaps you'd like to go first.
Yeah, I'm Bobby Burchill. I'm from Dudley in the West Midlands. If you recognise the accent, it's from Peaky Blinders, more than likely. I'm a training and development manager at ProPharma. I've worked here for 4 years now, heading up everything from onboarding to e-learning of soft skills. And prior to that, I'd worked for 21 and a half years at a further education college, training lecturers on how to use platform systems, getting the best content out to their learners. So I've got a lot of experience with when it comes to video production, editing, training, and trying to make it the best possible user experience for the learners.
Nice. I'm excited to pick your brain. We'll jump in just a second. Before then, Nada, would you like to introduce yourself as well?
Yes. Hey, everybody. I'm Nada. I'm based in Dubai, and I currently lead the Easy Video product team at Easygenerator. Um, a few years back, I started with actually a focus on engineering, holding various engineering roles, and I had a big passion for AI long before LLMs and the current AI revolution that's already happening kind of happened already. And then I slowly shifted to product. I worked quite a bit with the entrepreneurial space, specifically regarding operational efficiency. And now here I am, 2026, excited to explore AI in the domain of e learning. Exciting times.
Yeah, a lot has changed. I think you're in the perfect position as well to help with some of the questions I'm sure will pop up today. Of course, we'll be having a conversation, but it's not all about us. We would love to get your insights as well to those of you who have joined today. Out of curiosity, how much content do you think is video based in your learning today? I'm going to put a quick poll in the chat so we can see, where things lie. The answers are coming in. At first glance, it seems that it's kind of split. Uh, about 38% use less than 10% of video in learning. And then there's another, oh, it's changing again. At the start, it looked like more than 60% is also quite popular. But it seems like there's a good mix across the board, which will definitely make for an interesting discussion. Okay. With that in mind, let's perhaps get started with the actual chatting. So we're here to talk about video learning, not because it's new, but because it's become one of the most natural ways that people learn at work. So when employees need help, they want to build a skill or maybe solve a problem, they're going to look for something quick. This could be visual and also easy to apply. Most of the time, that means video. So the real question today isn't whether video works, because we know that it does. Instead, we're going to be looking at the challenge. And that's many L&D teams feel that video is still really difficult to scale. It's often slow or expensive, can be tied to production teams or specialist skills. And then as a result, videos stay polished, but maybe rare instead of timely and very useful. So at the same time, the most valuable knowledge in the organization lives with the employees. And when people are unable to share what they know, learning becomes maybe less relevant and less human. And on the flip side, when people can share what they know, learning becomes more relevant and more human. So we're going to take a look at all of this today. And we're going to explore those challenges when we can, I can't speak, when we can use video and when it becomes easier to create, what opportunities that unlocks. So I guess to get us started, we can look at why do we think learning works so well today? And Nada, I'd love your thoughts on that.
Okay. And I think that's a great way to start the topic today. I think video is winning not because it is more flashy or more engaging by default. I think it's winning because it removes the friction. When you're on the job and you have a question, you want an answer immediately. You don't want to have to be pulled away to go and take a course and study and then come back to apply that learning. And I think video works best when we talk about being in the flow of work. And a pattern that we've been seeing across organizations is what has changed is not people's attention spans. People's attention span has stayed the same over the past tens, maybe even hundreds of years. But what has changed is people's expectations. So again, people expect everything to happen immediately. And so I think when we talk about video as a visual learning style, I think for me, it's not a format choice as much as it is a response to how work naturally happens today.
Mhm. Yeah, makes sense. And Bobby, would you agree to that, or do you see something else different when it comes to videos and learning?
Well, I absolutely agree with the demand, the need for speed to get the resolution as quickly as possible. I'm sure everybody in the audience regularly Googles things on YouTube, how-to videos, and it's, only this weekend I had to change a battery in my key fob for my car, and the first thing I did was I searched for the video on how to do that, what's the battery, and then I got it sorted. So if you're in an industry, then if you can get it with the technology that you've got in your pocket with your phone and stuff, if you can watch a quick video, then it moves you forward a lot quicker. From a creating standpoint as well, from our part, when we're doing like systems and platforms and walkthroughs, it's a lot easier for me. I'm a live trainer. I'll stand on stage and show a demonstration of how to use a platform. But if I now work in this remote world where I never see anybody face to face, so for me to be able to record my screen with some audio over the top and do that step by step, it's quicker and gets it out there a lot more efficiently than me writing up a PDF of screenshots and what have you to send out.
Yeah, so I guess there's two pieces there. It's one, what we're going to expect, and then also efficiency in creating. I also will reach for my phone to look up something, quick video, whether it be YouTube, TikTok, or something else. But yeah, it's really interesting how expectations are changing, and that's something that you mentioned as well, Nada. And I'd love to dig into that a bit deeper. How do videos help meet those expectations better than, let's say, a text-heavy approach?
Right. So when we talk about video as a medium to transfer knowledge, video as a system on its own, you can pause the video, you can rewind the video, and then you can, skip to the part that you're looking for. So it's very efficient when it comes to demonstrating something. So when you're on the job, you learn by knowing, not by knowing something, you learn by doing something, as Bobby just touched upon. And I think when we, take two steps back and talk about the science behind video, video versus text-heavy approaches, video compresses the content into a shorter amount of time. So you consume more in a shorter amount of time versus text-heavy approaches, and that reduces the cognitive load, and that naturally is just much more efficient. Much more efficient. So think of behavioral learning, for example, like scenarios. With text, you have to read through a scenario, you have to understand the context, you have to, visualize the process, and then you have to make a judgment about a specific scenario. So this translation layer that is happening in your brain, that already consumes a lot of cognitive load. And again, video just drastically compresses that into a much shorter amount of time. And so as you get closer to the real job, video just becomes the primary learning format in that case.
Makes a lot of sense. And I think that you touched on something there with the pauses in the videos as well, which goes back to something that Bobby had mentioned. So I am curious to maybe follow that line of thought for a second. Uh, Bobby, you mentioned how easy it is to jump back into a video exactly where you need it. And I'm curious how important that control piece is for learners compared to more traditional resources.
Yeah, I think just being able to chapterize videos and being able to get to where you need to get to. A lot of this is obviously you've got to have the skills and the technology or know-how in some parts to be able to do it. But generationally, people now have got their Netflix and Disney Pluses and the video streaming, and they just go straight to the episode or the chapter that they want to get to. And that's exactly the same when it comes to the learning. If I want to get back into something and I pick up from where I left off, being able to get back into that video and move forward on the next part of the process or step on the platform that I'm in is a lot easier and a lot more motivating for me to get back into learning than scrolling through a 200-page PDF or a 90-slide slide set on PowerPoint or something, you know. So yeah, so I think the ease of access to get back to where you were, but also the bit that you want to learn in video is more powerful.
That makes a lot of sense. I think it also connects to perhaps how you view learning. So, is learning something like, let's say, a checkbox exercise or something prescriptive that you're just assigning, or are you using it as a resource to help people do what they need to be able to do so they can go back and define those answers quickly, which I think moves us along nicely to the next point. So, we know videos are important. We looked at kind of why that is, but still, there are some bottlenecks into how we can create more videos and make those available to our learners. So I think we can perhaps look at some of those obstacles. Um, Nada, in your point of view, what do you think are the biggest obstacles when it comes to using more videos?
That's actually a great question. And so I think demand exists. I mean, we all agree that video is winning, and everybody agrees that, video is more effective when it comes to the cognitive load and delivering content. But I think the obstacle is an ownership problem. So video, what we see in organizations is that it lives in a production mindset. So specialized tools, specialized people, long production cycles, and it has to be perfectly polished before it's ever shared. And people assume that if you're, in a video explaining something, that you have to be an actor or you have to be a performer. And that's a misconception. And I think that also brings us to the topic of, what is really the definition of quality when we talk about videos in the e-learning context? Because from a marketing video standpoint, the quality definition is different. And I think that's where people mix the two. So I think we need to understand that you are in an e-learning context and have the right quality benchmarks that are relevant to this type of content. And I think the negative impact of that, and that's what we see in a lot of organizations. Historically, that was always true, but I think now it's slowly changing. But we're seeing a lot of videos being perfectly polished and pixel perfect, but they're completely outdated. So they're useless. So they're not really effective anymore. So I think that's the biggest obstacle. It's definitely an ownership issue. It's a mindset issue.
Okay, so mindset issues, but then also, yeah, how do we overcome that quality piece? And Bobby, do you agree with these obstacles, or is there something else that you see being the biggest obstacle to using more video when it comes to learning and development?
I agree completely with Nada, but there are further things depending on what you want to do. Like you said, Ashley, and the people in some companies, the SMEs are the people who are responsible for creating the content as well, and they're not comfortable being on the camera, and they haven't got that design sort of mindset. It's just a piece of, if they do it, it's good enough, and it's not the best that it could be. We're fortunate at ProPharma that we've got our training development team, and we've got people who want to create and support and do a more polished job. But then the restrictions are that we can't go into an office as easily to interview somebody or to film cutaway scenes or whatever it might be. When I worked at the college, I was on a campus and I was in the office all the time, and I'd go and get the camera and I'd walk around the sites and I'd be able to film it. And if the person had stumbled over their words, you can get them to reshoot it straight away. Whereas if you're doing video now in a remote world and you're asking people to re-record themselves on the Teams meeting that they've just completed, and they send it over to you and then you watch it back, it's very long-winded and very hard. So it just puts people off from that editing. And then the skill set aspect is obviously, if you're using things like Adobe Premiere Pro, then they are difficult. If you, it's a complete, another language to try and get your head around if you're not from that part of the world. So anything that you can use in AI-related video creation, then you're going to get a lot slicker and smoother to an end product. But as I say, the quality isn't always there. Using real people and voices as well, if things change, if guidance changes or that person leaves and you want to replay, then again you've got to re-record it. So if you can use something where you can use text to audio, then that's obviously going to be speed up the bottleneck.
So there's a few things I think feeding in here. We have, time to create, the skills needed to create, keeping up with changes, the quality piece then as well, making something that's good enough quality to share. Maybe pixel perfect, maybe not, depending on the use case. I do see a question in the chat that we can address before we continue, looking at some of those obstacles. And that's around, are there any thoughts on preventing learners from fast forwarding or skipping videos versus forcing to watch? And I can speak from my own experience, and I would say it depends. I think at this stage, I need it on a mug or a t-shirt because it's one of my go-to slogans. But if it's something like compliance training, you need to show that learners have watched a full video. So then in that case, you might want to force them to watch the video beginning to end. That said, there's nothing stopping somebody from not paying attention to those videos. So I would always recommend following up with some type of knowledge check to ensure that people know what they need to know. But if it's something like learning as a resource, especially when you have adult learners, you don't want to force them to watch a video because it can become quite frustrating if they already know that information, if they're trying to look for something that they need. So definitely, I think on the design side, it depends. Not sure if either of you have something to add here before we look at the obstacles.
Yeah, well, the other thing with the restricting the sort of navigation aspect of making people watch the video, one of the benefits of it being in video as well, and not necessarily fast forwarding, it just came to me there, was people watch Netflix. I don't, but I'm not sure whether anybody else watches Netflix on like 1.5 and like fast, like the speed of the video is quicker, isn't it? Because that's how they want to learn. They want to get to the program and watch it in a different speed. So exactly the same with learning. You can have that video in and they might watch it at different speeds to get to the part that is going to interest them the most. But we regularly use those knowledge checks and restrict the navigation to ensure that people watch the full video before they can move forward on a page if it's in a course, especially.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense. It again depends on that knowledge piece, but especially with something pharma related is important that people are consuming that information.
I wanna
And
I
I
wanna
think,
jump in on
oh,
this
sorry.
point.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, there was
No,
a
go ahead.
lag. Okay. So I said I want to jump in on this point. I think enforcing like learner control sometimes, not giving the learners enough control to just skip to the parts that they need. I think that we see a lot of drop-offs when you do that. But I think also it depends on the type of learning use case, as you both mentioned. So I think you can, for example, have a chapter or a video lesson that is completely flexible, and I think you don't move to the next section until a specific knowledge piece is answered, a knowledge check is answered correctly. So again, you give flexibility, but you have a little bit of control to make sure that the knowledge is well retained before moving on to the next step. That's the point I just wanted to add from a systems perspective.
I think it's it is a good one and a good way of thinking. So you provide the flexibility to learners while also making sure that you're checking any boxes that need to be checked. And while I have you, Nada, I did have a question, and I think that this conversation is bringing us also back to ownership. So who's responsible for making these decisions, either on the video or the systems level? And I'm curious if you could dive a bit deeper into why that's such a blocker for learning and development.
Right. So I think we need to define and clearly communicate what quality benchmarks means for e-learning content. I understand that on the L&D side, when we talk about SMEs creating content, there is I would say, a fear of not having the right quality benchmarks and not being didactic enough and all those sorts of things. But I think the risk of not sharing knowledge at all is a lot more than um, it has a big negative impact than having a not a perfect format that is being shared. So I think employees naturally they share knowledge every single day. So the knowledge is being shared, and I think when we talk about ownership, we need to move them from production mindset and bring it back to the company, to the L&Ds and to the SMEs with the right guardrails in place. And I think that's what I mean when we talk about ownership.
Okay, so how to facilitate that? will be an important piece. And I can see that there's also a question in the chat from Haley around this as well. So if we have any advice on helping employees adjust or embrace video learning that maybe aren't so familiar with the technology. Bobby, you have boots on the ground. I'm curious if you could provide any insight on this.
Through experience, so I said earlier that we're in charge of onboarding. So from the get-go, we like to welcome our new starters. So we use video learning from there and create our package. Welcome to ProPharma. This is your schedule. This is what you're going to do, and then they get used to seeing the video then in the courses and the hosts of the courses. But what I've done previously is taken something that may look, it serves a purpose, and it's a PowerPoint or a PDF or whatever it might be, and shown them what's possible, just taken it and gone, okay, well, you've got this and it works, but actually if we put it into video and we make some tweaks, this is your other alternative. And it's very difficult when senior people see the better product or better option for them to turn that down. So whoever was who asked the question, I'd just recommend taking something that would be maybe a small example, but something that you can definitely see the bigger, it can be like a bigger impact, and then adapting that to a video as an example to put forward and say it didn't take, especially if it doesn't take you that very long to make that transition and adaptation, to sort of showcase what's possible, and then take it from there and grow it from there.
Makes sense. And I know you mentioned as well that employees or knowledge holders already have things like PowerPoint. Why do you think it is that they're maybe defaulting to that type of presentation or knowledge sharing option?
I think it's very much, it's familiar, isn't it? They've used it for 30 years or more, some people. So, nobody likes change. Everybody says nobody likes change. And unless you want to, and you've got that will to want to see what's possible or want to create things, then if you've got a deadline for next week and you've got a PowerPoint that's ready made and you can just make a tweak, you're going to change it like that, aren't you? You're updating it and sending it out as quickly as possible to meet that deadline. Again, going back to that example, if you haven't got as tight a deadline and you do have some time to have a little experiment with different options and video, then, and you do have an SME who wants to, change the way that things are delivered, then you'll have the buy-in and you'll have a really successful group project really to test out and roll out. And I think that's what you need for that change to be made. Otherwise, if it's a tight deadline, people just stick to what they know to get it done and off the desk.
Okay, that makes sense. So they're sticking to what they know, especially, there's so much on our plates today and so many things that we all have to do. So it makes sense that we're making that time spent in perhaps what seems the most familiar. And Nada, do you agree? Is there anything else that perhaps has traditionally stopped employees from creating training videos themselves?
No, I think I couldn't agree more with Bobby on that point, where, sometimes it's hard to start creating a video. Sometimes you don't know where to start. But I also want to touch upon another topic, which is that we see that corporate learning strategies sometimes don't make it safe for employees to contribute to content creation, especially video. And again, that ties back to the conversation we were having earlier when we talk about what are the quality benchmark when we talk about e-learning content creation. And I think you need to show to lead by example. So to show what an e-learning video actually looks like, what is good, what is considered good enough, and maybe you can show that through the impact it actually creates. So I think if we remove the friction, which I think Bobby touched on pretty well, and if we create a culture that is safe enough for them to contribute, I think that is a solution. And the solution here is more about shifting, controlling the content to enabling the contribution of employees.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So creating that culture as well where people feel comfortable.
100%.
I'm guessing, I'm guessing though that there can be so many different factors playing in here. So I am curious, for those of you joining us today, what do you think is stopping you or has stopped you in the past from using videos in your courses? I'm going to pop a second poll in the chat so we can take a look. I also noticed a question coming through about the nature of today's conversation from Thomas about whether we're talking about the topic of videos today or if we'll show how to create explainer videos in Easygenerator. So today is more around videos and what's blocking, how we can facilitate making videos and some of the benefits. And our colleague Maria, who you may know, she runs an enablement series. We'll be picking this up further in a few weeks to dive deeper into the creation piece and how that's done in Easygenerator, so a more tool-centric topic. So not today, but it is coming, of course. Okay, let's have a look at the poll. And it's interesting from the early results, it seems like, Bobby, what you said really resonates as well, that a lot of it ties back to time and capacity. But we are seeing that updates are painful and tools are complex. Interestingly enough, reviews don't seem to be slowing too many people down. So
one of the other options that we haven't got on that poll that I just thought about was the subject as well. The subject needs to lend itself to video. You can't. You can have really dry subjects depending on what industry that you're in, and it can be, like Nada said, really difficult to know where to start to create that and put that into a video. So you just think that you can't do it because of the subject. That's where, when we're doing demonstrations of platforms and processes, it's easier, isn't it, to you jump on a call and I'd show you through a step-by-step, click here, click there, and you just turn that into a video resource. But it's difficult for inspiration in time. But that's where AI saves the day, doesn't it, with popping in your PowerPoint and
saving us.
Save us all, gives us some inspiration.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's I'd say it's working as an aid and perhaps not as a blocker or replacement. Yeah. So I would be curious, Bobby, what you've seen as perhaps the blockers for yourself when it comes to creating training. Is it much what you mentioned, or would there be anything different if you talk about it on a personal level as you as a creator?
As a creator, sometimes I do struggle with the content that I'm given and a blank canvas because I'm not as creative as other people. I've got two people in my team who are fantastic at like taking a really dry subject and making a video out of it. So I take inspiration from them in the main. But that's the main. But comparing to from remote to in the workplace as well, it's massively different when it comes to like video, and depending on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to really talk to real people and get real people involved and on camera, then you can't really do that in a remote world and get people to film themselves on the webcam of a laptop. The quality just isn't there, and if you do want a good quality, I know it hasn't got to be exactly perfect to get it out there, but if you're trying to be the best that you can be, that's a big blocker, really.
You have to get
with
people into a
remote work.
room with lighting and I don't know,
Yeah,
a
exactly.
script. Yeah, does cost ever play into that? I know that's something I've heard in the past.
100%. Yeah, that's why we've never. Well, I've never suggested it here. We had a studio a couple of years ago. I think, I'm not sure whether they hired it or whether it was or how it worked, but I know that we got a lot of senior leadership into a room once and filmed something like a bit of a chat show news broadcast kind of thing for a town hall, which was great. But obviously the cost of that, flying people and doing all that, is just, it's a non-starter, isn't it, if you're working in a remote world, really, for all video. Maybe on the grand scheme they might do it as a one-off special, but for the people in the room now, we were trying to do video daily, you can't do that.
Depends on the impact. And I can see there's some nice tips as well coming through the chat. One from Sam is talking about video production, and not everybody is a natural when it comes to being on camera or getting ready to record something. So some people need to be more relaxed or more engaging. And I think there's a really good piece of advice here, which is saying to plan in advance. So telling people things to like to talk slowly or remember them to smile when it's appropriate to smile. And that can certainly help as well if anyone's diving into the production piece today. Nad, I'm curious if you had anything that you might want to add
Yeah.
there.
I think on this point, a lot of the feedback we're getting in general when we talk about video is people being camera shy, or they don't feel like they're perfect in front of the camera, or they feel the pressure that they have to act or perform. Whereas Sam, you mentioned here, you remember to smile at the right moments, and I mean that's too heavy. So I think, first of all, it's understandable, and it's a very valid concern. And the second point I want to make is with the current tools and systems available nowadays, there are options. And so people need to know that there are options like AI voices. And when I say AI voices or avatars, AI voices right now, today, they already sound as good as human voices. You can't even distinguish them. So there are options and alternatives, and it doesn't have to be you in front of the camera the whole time. And if you don't like an avatar, you can use an AI voice or you can use both. So I think with the tools nowadays, because I mean, 2 years ago we were talking about when AI comes, AI is the future. But I mean, in 2026, I mean, we already are in the future. So I think that removes a lot of the friction.
Yeah, using what we have as an aid, which also brings us to another point, Pana, in the chat. And I'd love to see everyone engaging. I think it's making for a really rich conversation. But Pana is mentioning that, yeah, not everybody is a professional video creator, and there could be ethical reasonings behind this. And perhaps it is ethical to pay somebody like a professional to create a video for us or for you or for your organization. Uh, and she'd love to, or they'd love to get our thoughts. And Bobby, since you're using some pro software, I'd love to get your take on this about, yeah, making videos yourself, paying a professional. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Yeah, if you've got the budget for it, pay somebody else to do it. It would be with the motto. If you haven't got the time, if it's back to the blockers, isn't it? If you haven't got the time and the capacity to learn it and to edit it, people outside of video editors don't understand how long video editing takes. You will film hours and hours of footage, and that will be for a 3.5 minute video to cut it all down and all the transitions and everything. And that's just obviously the sort of headline. To do that, you then need to learn the tool and all of the processes in it to make it look the highest quality. I'm not. I wouldn't even say I was a perfectionist, but I need to put things out that I'm proud of at the end of the day. But again, depending on deadlines and things, you might go, well, that's good enough. It's not absolutely perfect, but it will serve the purpose. So if you have a budget and you have the buy-in again to create video learning, then I'd absolutely say if you haven't got somebody who's got the skill set or time to learn it, then yeah, there's no harm in putting it out there. However, changes that are made in the future, you've got to then obviously incorporate that in if you want to then pay them to edit the video going forward. And how often is it something that's going to happen every year in a new update? And so maybe again, going back to the example one, you start off small with something that is going to stand the test of time really, and turn that into a video and pay something, then you can assess the quality and see where you take it from there.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And I think, again, this could be a case of it depends. If you're doing something that's really high impact, it's going to get a lot of eyes, then it makes sense to go to a professional and put that time, energy, and resources into it. But you can't take that approach for every learning need or every topic, because then eventually you'll run out of time and resources, and there'll be certain topics that go unmet or perhaps uncovered. So maybe it's a bit of a balancing act depending on what you're doing and the impact that you're having. Or at least that's what I've seen when it comes to different organizations creating videos. And I think this also makes a nice segue into the future and what the future looks like for videos. And yeah, when creating videos becomes easy, what is possible when it comes to learning? Nada, how realistic do you think it is for internal experts to create video training?
Now, I think in 2026, when we talk about how realistic or practical it already, there's so many use cases, and that's because of AI. And I want to dive deeper here because and I'm going to use the example of what we're doing in Easy Video. So with Easy Video, we're trying not to replace people. The goal is to not replace people, and AI cannot replace people. That's a misconception. The goal is to remove the friction, and to remove the friction both for L&Ds and for SMEs. So I want to talk about a little bit of use cases and what really happens on the ground from what we see across all the organizations that are adopting video so far. So I think one is, as Bobby mentioned earlier, is to start from a familiar piece of document, like a PowerPoint, something that already exists. And you can just take that, use AI, and then transform it into a video. That already removes the hurdle of starting and experiencing what we call blank page paralysis. AI can generate a script to make your PowerPoints more engaging, and that's already a big use case because most of the e-learning content available today is in PowerPoint. Another use case would be to start from a document like existing policies or guide and to create, explainer style videos, again, through the use of AI. Or I think the future where it's going to be taking us is to start from a prompt. So you prompt your way or you explain your way into a video. And I think one last use case I also want to touch upon, and I think we tying back to a couple of points we mentioned earlier in the conversation, is about maintainability. And I think one of the challenges is, creating a video and having to maintain it over time. And with the ease of creation and with AI removing the friction, all you would need to do is you can also start from an existing video where you take a slide or a specific scene and you make updates only to that specific scene, and then the video is evergreen. So you have both efficiency and effectiveness. And it's very easy to create. AI removes the friction, and then you have the perfect feedback loop where you see the learning impact happen in real time as well. So I think with AI, there's so many possibilities in 2026, and that is actually what excites me most about this year in video led learning in specific.
And I know you're working on some of this with Easy Video. Is that correct, Nada?
Yes. So with Easy Video, actually, sneak peek, this is exactly what we're working on.
Nice. I know, though, the reason I wanted to touch on that is there has been some questions in the chat. So for anybody who is interested, we do have Maria's webinar coming up, but we will also put an Easy Video guide in the chat for you as well if you're curious about what getting started with that looks like. Yeah, I'm excited for the future. I'm really excited to see where things are going. So Bobby, I'd love your thoughts on this as well. How realistic do you think it is for experts, to be included in that video creation process?
Well, it's funny actually because I had an email a couple of weeks ago about AI and videos, and we'd used one of our videos in our e-learning, which was obviously an avatar and not me and my Peaky Blinders accent, which they obviously noticed. And somebody reached out and emailed and said, I'll read it to you, said, I couldn't shake the thought that a human actor had effectively lost their job and been replaced by an AI. Sure, this will save the business money, but as we rely on the hiring of humans to do jobs, I felt I had to highlight the issue that maybe others haven't thought of yet, choosing to replace a human with an AI. And she emailed me that email in concern for effectively my job, because it was me who chose not to deliver the training and use the AI and avatar and the script instead. So obviously I explained that it was for ease and for future being able to change it as quickly as possible, but also to say it's up to us as learning and development people to be able to show the benefits of that. And like I said earlier, AI, I said ingest, it solves all our problems. It doesn't. It just gives us inspiration. You put that PowerPoint in and it gives you something to work on. And then what that will help us in L&D do is do more things quicker and bigger and more efficiently. And other people who are just subject matter experts who want to get involved, it will give them a platform. But that quality aspect still needs to be maintained, and the reviewing and the tweaking and fine tuning, and that's now what we may do more of than starting with a blank canvas and having to think of the creation and put those things together, because we can drop our content in and it gives us something to work with. But my team will tell you it might give us something to work with, and we might just completely change it anyway. but it's shown us what's possible, and it's about training people on how to prompt and how to best use and how to then edit afterwards. So yeah, so I'm hopeful that I've still got a job in a few years with AI, but you just got to adapt your tool set, haven't you?
Yeah, using it as a tool, also adapting your tool set, but also adapting, to the different ways of working.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. It's enabling you to create those videos and perhaps pick up more learning requests rather than having to sit down and record everything. And I know AI avatars are kind of a hot topic at the moment, concern for actors. It's nice in this case that, the actor wasn't replaced. You just didn't have to get on camera. You still sat down and got paid for
Yeah.
the job. But I'm curious, how does AI help people create more without lowering that quality or without lowering or removing that human role?
They are getting better, the avatars and the voices, so you want to make them as realistic as possible. But for me, if I'm watching a video with an avatar, or I'm watching a LinkedIn learning video with a person giving me the delivery, it doesn't really make any difference because the content's just sort of stock content. So it's more about the personalized content. So I want to see an avatar talking about ProPharma. This is what we do here in leadership, or this is what we do here on this platform, and then the content being adapted to be like real and real life experiences for our staff here to learn. I'm not, it doesn't matter whether that's a real person or an avatar, as long as it's adapted content that the people at the other end, the learners, can buy into. So that's more what I try and get across. Really, it doesn't need to be human. The content needs to be real.
Again, like I think that it touches on a lot, or it ties a lot of the conversation that we've been having together. So there's a quality piece, so you want it to be good enough quality, not necessarily, this is my own words, a Spielberg production. So you want something that's good quality, but you also want it to be relevant to your learners. So perhaps using
Yeah.
that AI avatar will allow you to deliver something that's more relevant, and it might not be absolutely perfect or something you'd show on the silver screen, but it's something that's getting the message across in a more engaging or more accessible format.
I do want to
Um,
jump in here though
mhm,
on the
Yeah.
point of regarding AI actually. And I
hmm
think something that one of our goals for 2026 also is, AI is not ever going to be the decision maker. The decision is going to always be with L&Ds. AI is just going to make L&D's effort go more upstream. So it's going to automate a lot of the reviewing and the polishing aspect of things, but it's never going to, have the end-to-end control the end-to-end process. So the goal for us is to allow L&Ds to be able to support not 10 authors, but 100 authors. So again, it does not replace the human in an L&D context from that perspective. It supports and it enables things or the whole process to be more efficient. And the decision at the end of the day lies with the human because it has more context about the organization and it has the better judgment. And I don't personally see that actually changing anytime soon or even ever. So that's the point I just wanted to make because we've been hearing it often here and there in our chats internally.
Yeah, it's not coming for you. We're adapting to use it as an aid. I completely understand. But I think we also, we're learning that, and we're seeing that perhaps the predictions we saw in, I think it was 2021, 2022 are
Exactly.
not quite
That's
what's happening today. Um, but I see there's some questions in the chat, and while we have you, Nat, I think you might be able to add some insight here. And Guido made a point about AI voices and avatars, that you can be really focused on the body language. Now, this wasn't the wording used, but in like that uncanny valley effect, perhaps. And wasn't sure if there's perhaps this applies to other software, or there's a ways to mask or avoid this when it comes to video editing. So I'd love your insights, from the product side when it comes to avatars.
All right, so that's a very good question. And I'm not sure if you've seen our recent updates, but we have two components here. We have AI voices separate, where we have it as a narration only mode, where you can use an AI voice to narrate an entire video. And when that first launched, with our tool, with Easy Video, and actually with a lot of tools on the market, it did sound a little bit robotic. But I think with the recent advancements, and if you go try it now, it's almost indistinguishable from a human voice, like almost indistinguishable, and it's available in up to 70 languages. And not only that, but we also have authentic regional accents. So I think the AI voice component is now almost indistinguishable. But when we talk about avatars, that is still, there's the uncanny valley, and that I do agree with. Again, when we initially launched avatars, similar to other tools as well, it did look very unrealistic, and the movements would just, stay play in a loop. But I think I'm also gonna give you a sneak peek. In the next weeks, our AI avatars are gonna have an incredible boost when it comes to expression and realism. And I also want to make a point that this is a technology that's always continuously improving. So, and it's improving faster than we can comprehend at this point when we talk about AI. Like, look what has happened in a matter of 2 years. So I do agree with the AI avatars, and there will be a lot of improvements really soon. And by soon, I mean weeks, not months. That's how fast it's moving.
It's exciting to
Can
hear.
I
It's definitely improving. Sorry,
can I add
Bobby, I
to
cut
that?
you off.
No,
Yeah.
sorry, it's all right. Just I've used avatars for probably 3 years now, I think it is, and regardless of whether it's an avatar or a human that's on the screen talking to me, showing me something, I get drawn to looking at them rather than what's going on behind them, which is usually the message that we're trying to show, especially if you're showing like a process on the video. So the way I work around that problem with the lip syncing with avatars or whatever it might be is not have them on the screen, but use them for the audio, because then you get the message across in your video learning that you want the learners to be focused on that process, on clicking on that box and the reason why. The person's still saying the words. So as long as the audio is, and it is getting better and does sound more realistic, then we've done videos before where the avatar is on to start with, to welcome you, and then they disappear for the next couple of minutes, and they might come back at the end to say thanks for watching, and any problems, reach out. So there's ways around it. You don't have to keep them on the screen the whole time, because everybody gets drawn to looking at the lips and seeing whether it's syncing properly.
Yeah, they are definitely becoming better. I think it was last week or the week before, I sent out a quick introduction video of myself to a client, and they emailed me back asking if I was AI. So I know I blink slow. Apologies to anyone watching my slow blinks today, but I am definitely real. So it just goes to show how quick AI is advancing. On top of
Yeah.
that, I noticed we have about 50, just under 15 minutes left. So I did want to leave room for Q&A. And Bobby, you gave us some really nice tips there when it came to how to use AI avatars. And I see another question in the chat. I'll get to that in just a second. We are going to go back and try and answer some of the questions that we may have missed. But if there's anything else top of mind, questions, feedback that you have, feel free to drop it in the chat now as well. Okay, thanks for coming to my TED Talk. I'll get back to the question, and it's coming from Matthias. And I'd love you for your help here, Bobby. So Matthias has been creating videos for some time, for some work, and noticed that about a few months go by and you have to go back over and update details. And if there's any advice when it comes to this, not sure whether they need to reproduce the whole video or how to approach those updates.
Again, it depends on what you're using, doesn't it? I mean, I use Synthesia at the moment, and I go onto that platform and I change the script and I regenerate the video, and that's as quickly as and seamlessly as it is, and it takes as long as the video generates. If it's that you need to then re-record things again, you've got the scenes just like you would in PowerPoint, and you just take the one out and replace that bit. But by using Synthesia in this instance, or Easy Video, once it's out, it's a lot easier and a lot more efficient and timely for you to get those updates done and completed. If you're creating a video which is quite some work in 3 months, and you're relying on people, and that's not taking away the human element, because as I say, if the content and that SME has provided the script that goes into it, it's related to your company and your industry, but you can just make those changes quicker. If you're relying on somebody to re-record, have they got capacity to help you have they, got the time to and then the buy-in, and sometimes they haven't. People are busy, so it's just easier to just take that on yourself and just say, well, what wording needs changing, regenerate.
Yeah, a lot of the AI tools have that. I know it's something in Easy Video as well, that you can go in, and because it's integrated in the platform, you can go in, click on the video, update the script, and then have the whole video updated in the tool. So there's definitely ways around it, depending on the nature of the video that you're creating, of course. And then I think that actually follows up on a nice question coming from Sam. So Nada, perhaps you can help. The question are, what are your thoughts and plans on being able to jump to chapters in videos like Easygenerator, like on YouTube, or search by a video, like it's a transcript in a Zoom recording?
Now, that's a really, really good question. And that's where we are investing a little bit of our efforts right now. I think we're looking at which use cases in your organization require a video as a primary learning format. And I think we're seeing a pattern here across many organizations where that is the case. So, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about, for example, skill based learning, the closer you are to the real job, the more video becomes primary. And that means you need the learner experience to follow suit. And that means having, chapters, jumping to the right chapters. And this is pretty much what we call video courses. And I think it's also part of the future, but I may have more information about that soon, but nothing concrete at the moment. But I think again, as video becomes the primary learning format, then the tools and systems have to follow suit. That's my take on it.
Makes a lot of sense. I know that, yeah, that's a way to find it in the video. If you are looking at, let's say, a longer topic, I know that an approach that I see a lot
Exactly.
of creators take as well is just break the videos up into the smaller videos, essentially.
And I
Um,
think I, uh, also a good point because I think a couple of hours ago, I was having a chat with one of our largest enterprise customers in the mining industry.
mhm,
And one of the things they mentioned is that so their offering is they create product training or sales training
mhm,
videos or e-learning content, not necessarily videos, in the form of PPT. And the feedback right now has become very negative because PPT does not suffice. Those videos, this e-learning format where it requires a demonstration. So I think there's more demand when it comes to videos. And when we talk about upskilling our employees, that's even more and more necessary and more critical because 10 years ago you could buy something because somebody's being nice or you don't have a lot of questions and it was just a nice conversation. But I think now versus 10 years ago, you ask a lot of questions, and employees, especially sales training, everybody needs to be very proficient as to exactly what they're selling or what they're offering to their customers. And I think that requires a lot of training. And that's where we see
mhm,
video becoming a primary learning format. And touching back to your point, then we talk about full video courses because it's a longer, more complicated topic. And at this point, with everybody being very busy, it's important. It's almost it's not possible, right, with the time constraints that we have as busy professionals to do it otherwise than with
mhm.
video.
Makes sense. And I think that also leads us in nicely to the next question I see from Catherine about, yeah, what are some tips and tricks to make perhaps those longer videos or videos more interactive? Um, yeah, Bobby, I'm curious if you have any insights on that.
Um, like you just saying about putting videos in courses, I mean, the easiest thing, if you've got Easygenerator, is to have a video in a question and then ask a question afterwards, and that's as much as you can probably do. But there are things out there where you can make them interactive. You can put call to action buttons on your videos that go somewhere else. You can have
Mhm,
buttons that will display further videos and things, and so maybe you can adapt like walkthroughs in that
mhm,
case, or scenarios. So there are things out there which, rather than just watch this for 5 minutes, but if you are using Easygenerator, then I'd recommend putting it into the questions and having an
yeah.
assessments piece around the video.
And the different interactivities. I would agree. I've seen some really innovative things in this space. I was looking at a customer support training recently, and they had created a video that you watched before you answered a question. So you were like watching an interaction, and then answering a question based on that. So it's also how you're using videos in the context of the learning more wholly.
I want to jump in on this point.
Yeah.
And we were discussing actually a few days back. I want to talk about the science behind having learner engagement when you have a video. So I think we were looking at a bunch of research, and it does say that the learner or the attention span of the learner is 6 to 8 minutes. But if you, for a video, I'm talking about a video, and then if you add a little bit of engagement in that video, like a knowledge check or a hotspot or whatever interactive method that you would use, that their attention span actually becomes longer. So it's not like we have a biological clock where, after 8 minutes or 6 to 8 minutes, we clock out. It's about how you design your learning. And then this is how you can extend the attention span, and you can allow more consumption of knowledge per session to your learners.
I think it's really interesting, and hopefully something we can all take in action after today's call. I can see us all getting out our video tools. Speaking of video tools and creating, I see another question in the chat, and I believe we have time to answer it. And Nada, perhaps you can help. It is there a plan to allow real co-authoring on videos?
Yes, 100%. Actually, end of Q1, we have our first iteration of collaboration, real-time collaboration coming in. You won't be able to have it 100% real time, but you'll be able to see who is editing a particular piece of a video. So technically, you can still co-author videos at the same time. We just manage the conflicts by locking in whatever it is that somebody else is co-authoring, kind of like slides, similar to that. So coming soon. Stay tuned.
Okay. I think we have time for one last question as well before we start to wrap things up. And I see there's a question in the chat from Andrew. So recommendations around the ideal length of the video in order to maintain a learner's attention. I know, Nada, you gave us a really nice scientific answer, 6 to 8 minutes. James and Claudia mentioned 5 to 10. Bobby, through your experience of providing video learning to learners, would you agree, or is there anything you would add?
The only thing I would add is personal preferences. I'd rather watch a 10-minute video than read a 10-page Word document. So, it would take me less time to read that 10-page Word document, but it's more engaging to watch the video and watch the walkthrough. So it all depends really on the message that's trying to get over. But yeah, 5 to 10. Not over the science of 8, though. We've got to agree with Nada. Nada's done the research on the science, so 6 to 8 minutes probably the best.
Yeah, depends on the topic. I would say, for those larger topics, my approach, and it's been well received so far, is just to break it down. So maybe instead of having a 30-minute video, I might have 10 or 3 10-minute videos. I can't speak. You can tell the time is running out. And I might have a little bit of text or an interactivity or a question in between to try and re-engage learners and make sure that they're applying that information as they go as well.
We'll have some that are 30 seconds. Sorry, just to add, if that process is literally just click that, do that, there you go, it's uploaded or something. That's fine, isn't it? Because you've done the message. You haven't got to bolt all those together to make a 10-minute thing for the whole product. So it all depends.
No, that's using it as a resource, of course. I noticed that we're nearly at the time, and I assume that, people have busy days as well. So we can certainly go ahead and wrap things up. There are some questions in the chat about Easy Video. It is ready. It is available if you want to test it. There's questions about the roadmap, which we do have. We can get in touch. We can connect offline, you and your main point of contact at Easygenerator, and make sure that we answer any of those questions. In the meantime, I do want to thank you both, Bobby and Nada, for joining today. I really enjoyed the conversation. The chat seemed to enjoy it too. Okay, so thank you both. I'm not sure if there's any last words, any last comments that you might have before we officially wrap up today.
No, just do some video learning. I recommend it. That's all I've got to say, really.
And all I have to say is don't miss out on AI and e-learning in 2026. Don't fall behind.
Yeah, I'm a big fan as well. It's definitely saving us all time. Okay, in that case, thank you very much.